Good evening. On behalf of Creative Tucson, Channel 20, I'd like to welcome you to an evening of poetry. A delicious, wonderful, summertime evening of poetry here in the capital of poetry on the entire desert planet of Arizona, Tucson. I'm David Fitz Fitzsimmons. I'm the editorial cartoonist of the Arizona Daily Star and their alleged humor columnist, and I am so pleased that I was invited by the poet Jefferson Carter here tonight to introduce this evening of poetry, featuring a reading by Jefferson and a reading by Mayor Jonathan Rothschild. Now, I want to read a little bit from one of my favorite books of poems. It was a gift to me from the poet Jefferson Carter about the author. Jefferson Carter's lived in Tucson since 1954. This tells us that he's insightful because he's incredibly old. In fact, he was here when Geronimo was penning poems. Currently, well, maybe not so currently, it says here he's a passionate volunteer with the Sky Island Alliance, tree hugger. He's won a Tucson Pima Arts Council Library Arts Fellowship, which really is very impressive. His poems have appeared in such publications as Carolina Quarterly, Cream City Review, Cutthroat, Barrow Street, Sonora Review, and New Poets of the American West. His chapbook, which perhaps will explain to some of us later on what a chapbook is, I think it involves leather and whips. His chapbook, Tough Love, won the Riverstone Poetry Press Award. This book I have here is his 9th collection of poetry. I don't know how many more beyond that he has produced, because I'm going broke buying all of his poetry books. And each one is worth it, and each one is memorable and unique and unforgettable. So please welcome tonight to this stage to read a sampling of his poetry, the wonderful Jefferson Carter.
A good way to break the ice for a poetry reading is to read a poem about pets. Everybody likes pet poems, so this is a dog poem. Can you hear me all right? No. Just talk louder? Oh, geez, all right, yeah. All right, a dog poem. This is called Thunder. Lightning, then of course thunder. We can get used to anything. The window lit up, shakes, and we're comforted, pulling the blankets to our chins. The dog, half blind, diabetic, fat as a woodchuck, burrows between us, panting, trembling like she's never heard thunder before. Maybe she hasn't. She lives so much in the moment. Here's her day. I was in, now I'm out. I was out, now I'm in. You going to eat that? You going to eat that? I'll eat that. Here's her night so far. What's that? Thunder. What's that? Thunder. What's that? Thunder. I taught writing at Pima College for 30 years. I retired 9 years ago, and I do volunteer work for Sky Island Alliance, which is a locally based environmental group. They do really good work, and I have some of the newsletter. I've left copies of the newsletter on the table back there, so if you want to look at it. And one of my early projects was to enter into the computer data from jaguar kills in northern Mexico and in Arizona. And in 1940, I think that was one of the most recent ones. There was a jaguar that was killed on the Santa Cruz River. And the last stanza of this poem is just taken directly from that. I'd like to bring back air quotes. I don't know where they went. I might do that tonight. Kill data. My soap, cruelty-free, handcrafted, contains olive oil. I smell like a salad. Do Muslim men do household chores? I consider converting. Did their ancestors, like ours, keep kill data? After Mass, December 23rd, 1940, Santa Cruz River, a jaguar, male, roped, killed with rocks, 138 pounds, tail 72 inches, stomach full of frogs. Can you even say this in Arabic? I enjoy working for Sky Island because I get inspired by the subject matter I'm working with. And so the next couple of poems will be what I wrote when I was supposed to be working. The Book of Extinctions. I borrowed a book and never returned it. Extinct Species of the World, the book I liberated, chronicles the disappearance of innumerable species of animals. You already know about the ivory-billed woodpecker and the passenger pigeon, but how about Gilbert's poutereau or the Martinique pilori? Goodbye, freckled dibbler. Goodbye, barred bandicoot. The book, published in 1990, concludes more than 100 species a day will have disappeared by the end of the century. The publishers want someone to revise and update a second edition, some dry-eyed expert at saying goodbye. Leaping widows. Here in the Southwest, certain black widow spiders have evolved into leaping widows, each leg the size of a grasshopper's thigh. Unprovoked, she springs from her web, that cloud in a corner, and bites your face. You may not believe in evolution, but evolution believes in you. Spirit animal. My animal? The platypus, of course. Not the penguin, too black and white. Not the wolverine, ferocious and smelly. The horse? No, I share with all those white women who call themselves night wind. The platypus reminds me of me, his ambivalence, his moral versatility, his head like a furry spatula. Did you know the platypus boasts a poisonous spur on each thigh? Nerve damage, paralysis, death. Welcome to our biome. His spirit animal? Me, of course. This last poem about sort of environmental issues, I just threw a bunch of scientific terms together. I'll sit there, and I'm supposed to be working at the computer, and I'll come across some term that really sounds interesting. I have no idea what it means, so I write it down, and so there are a bunch of them in this. So if you don't understand it, don't worry, I don't either. The last bumper sticker. Do you believe in magic? Sorry, I meant science. Geospatially stratified random sampling, field-specific conductance. How about spheres of discharge, multiple seeping sources, climate refugia? No? Then adjust your earbuds, get ready for some extreme karst, for guest ethicists and your favorite Boko Haram musicals. Adam Haddam, the first poem about fleas. The first joke about rabbits. It'll be fun, wasn't it? The last bumper sticker. No jobs on a dead planet. Oh, I'd like to read a couple of poems. I usually dedicate this one to all the couples out there who've been together for a long time, because usually my audience is, elderly. And a couple of weeks ago, a friend, Tim Shafter, and I read some poems at an open mic at Hotel Congress, and the audience, they're all like 20-something. So I couldn't say, I'd like to dedicate it to all you couples who've been together for 30 years. So I had to say, I'd like to dedicate the poem to all you couples who've been together for 6 months. This is called Heavy. When in bed she throws her thigh across mine, I recall that old slogan, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. She ain't heavy, she's my wife. But she is heavy. When I shift her head because she's snoring, it's heavy as a kettlebell. Awake, what's heavier than her cheerful gravitas, which the online dictionary points out rhymes with forward pass. When we leave a party, friends say to each other, she's a saint, his wife, he can be such an asshole. Who knows what a soul weighs? I know love weighs a ton. Thank you. Dedicated to... This is called Stardust. It's another sort of poem about marriage. It's an epigraph by Joni Mitchell. We are stardust, we are golden. We talk for hours about having nothing to talk about. After all these years, we still don't resemble each other. To entertain her, I wonder out loud about eating the cat. Would his thigh taste like dark meat? Rushing to get ready, she asks, what is wrong with you? Stardust? No, more like radon and neon, those noble gases which don't bond but boil separately at the same temperature. I have question marks on these next poems. Okay, this is called Rice. My love hates me singing 5 feet of heaven and a ponytail. She's only 4'11" and practical. Her advice? Don't clip the cat's toenails when you're drunk. I dreamt I had dandruff like yellow grains of rice. I scratched and scratched my scalp, the rice plinking into the steel bowls arranged around me. My love tells me I'm not perfect, but I felt pretty good feeding thousands. About, maybe 10, 11 years ago, I started waking up and crying. For no reason. I figured I was depressed. Nothing was going wrong. My life was great, no money problems. My wife and I were getting along. My son was doing well, and I would just wake up in the morning and start crying and be in despair. So I went to a couple psychiatrists. There's some really bad psychiatrists around. I finally found one who was pretty good, but earlier I'd been given something called Elavil, which is a really old-fashioned antidepressant. Elavil. Oh, also, as I read this, think about, if you've been watching MSNBC, think about those, like little bits of news that come in, that interrupt those commercials. It's like an hour of commercials with 2 minutes of news. And that's sort of about that. Also, think about the commercials themselves, which are all about, tell your doctor about this drug. Elavil. Every family has that story about grandpa getting blue and going to bed for a month, curtains drawn. When I get blue, it's no joke. Ask a Mormon missionary how he feels bugging housewives, wiping spit off his shoes. Elavil online, $100 for 30 caps. Possible side effects, black tongue, breast development in males, coma, hives, strange tastes, swollen testicles, stroke, vomiting, red or purple spots on skin. How low can you go? How high can you get? Me, when I'm happy, I sign all my emails, hug, kiss, hug, kiss, hug, kiss. Postal sonnet. Today's mail, an invitation to join Arizona's liveliest burial society. Another illegible handwritten note offering to landscape the front yard. A letter from my shrink informing me he's closing his practice. He extends best wishes for my future health and happiness. I don't panic. I suppose I'm cured. I'll miss our sessions, discussing poetry and joking about a better life through chemistry. Now, who will answer my inconsequential questions, the ones nobody else cares about? Did you know in Eastern psychology, the word personality means scar tissue? I'll read a couple more. I still have more questions on them. Okay, this is called Adventures in Meditation. Observe without judgment the nightclub of your mind, a metaphor I stole from a self-help manual. Years ago in a Tangier hotel, I camped for a week in bed with a transcendental meditation disciple. She gifted me a mantra, my very own personal sound. I escaped the morning she told me she could levitate. I'm reading a novel whose narrator, a 9-month fetus, thinks to himself what the world needs now is fresh-faced empiricists. I'm not so sure. When I hear the word spiritual, of course I check my wallet. But you know what? My newest guru had me at, don't just do something, sit there. It took me about 13 years to write a poem about 9/11, and here it is. The Falling Man. The tower's gray and white stripes, like a corduroy curtain behind him. The man, dark-skinned, wearing a pale sports coat and black slacks. The man isn't falling. I've superglued the photo upside down to the inside of my closet door. He isn't falling, one knee lifted, arms rigid, trapping the billowing skirts of his jacket against his sides. He's anyone you can imagine, the father of many girls, an expert on the language of Greenland, which has no expletives, a novice step dancer practicing his routine. Sometimes, when no one's around, I open the closet door and say, "Good morning, dancing man." All right, this is my last poem. I'd like to just do a little commercial break here. Jonathan and I have our books at the back table, and we're not, well, the way to not be accused of being greedy is to say you're giving the profits to KXCI. We're giving the profits to KXCI, so. This is called Helen. She's almost 90. Her forehead, like an uncloudy day. She must have been a beautiful baby. Now she farts during yoga, plow pose, cow face pose, even corpse pose. You can hear her backfiring like an old Vespa among the scented candles. Nobody laughs, certainly not me. No jokes about gasasana, the 5 inner winds, the vibrations of the blissful sheath. I am practicing Ujjayi breath, pretending I'm fogging a mirror, imagining my blurred reflection, which is almost nothing, and preparing to bow and say the divine in me bows to the divine in you.
Thank you. That was the wonderful Jefferson Carter. Let's hear it again for Mr. Carter's wonderful poems. Our next poet is a graduate of Canyon del Oro High School who now enjoys the breathtaking view from his balcony, where he has seen fit to patch all the roads of this municipality. And not only that, he has reached out to Mexico. He has found shelter for homeless veterans when he is not healing the lame and recovering the sick. He serves as the mayor of Tucson. Please welcome this evening's next poet, Mr. Jonathan Rothschild.
I'm very nervous in front of these TV cameras. I've never seen those before. So I think what I'm going to do is read a few poems, as Jefferson did. and kind of tell you my journey a little bit to how I got this book published in 2009 by Chax Press, who was a local publisher, has now moved on to Houston. We had a great run with this. We, I think, published 300 or 400 and came close to selling them out, which I learned was a bestseller for small press. Although I heard you did better if you were a poetry teacher and sold them to your students. But anyway, there's 2 back left there. The only 2 left to be known in existence, I think, unless you go to either Mostly Books or the U of A Poetry Center. So I'm going to read, I've decided that my shorter ones might be my best, which might say something about my poetry, but I'm going to read one called Fragment, which was one of the first ones I wrote. I probably started doing this in about 2002, which was a time when I probably needed to go a little more internal in the state of the world. But the beautiful thing about it is I now read some of these poems that are probably some of them close to 10 years old, and in some ways the world hasn't changed for the better, not for the better. So this was one of the first ones. It was called Fragment, and it just went like this. Summer never stirs in the black forest. There, the chocolate milking goddess plays through the white eternity of winter, wanting her lover's shadow to take her as he whispers into her adoring breast. I thought that sounded really pretty. I said, I can write poems. Yeah, I said I can write poems. Then I decided if I was going to really be serious about that, I probably ought to read poets. So I spent a lot of time reading poets, and then it sort of came next to this, which was called Ode to Billy Collins. Imagine the scorn on the faces of those who read the American Poet Laureate, only to find his genius is doing nothing to disguise his identity as the nondescript fellow at the mall, buying the discount suit or wishing for the Caribbean vacation. A middle-aged, balding white man of diminished build in tweed, mistaken for the certified public accountant you let go at the office. Sure, there is a pretension of jazz in the background and a flavor of Eastern religion displayed as curiosity, but really no more than any of us find on the National Public Radio or the spiritual shelves at the big box bookstore. So it is common comfort and a disturbing turn in our familiarity of what he is. Wouldn't we like to believe that art is something different than ourselves? We are not so different from our aspiration. If we observe in time our ordinary abstractions, we wake to the present moment and record the existing self. It's Billy, yeah. So then I'm going, I think I can do this. And I'd start going out places and observing, and this was something that I put together after going to the funeral of one of my older law partner's wife, somebody who I admired very much. And this is called The Last Clubhouse Eulogy, which I must have liked a lot because I named the book that. I stare at the roomful of prospective ghosts trying to dignify mortality. They tribute the likable unfortunate, renaming her pain with sunshine, weighting words with ill-grown dream logic's weedy asylum. The husband remembers his insoluble adultery, while the daughter confronts the physical vacuum of near orphanhood. Ignoring language's inadequacy, they gather collective memories, creating an oracular familiarity of she recently passed. By a shrewd pruning of her rueful behavior that does not convey the obsession of her interior motion, the new history makes a long and curious mourning of beguiling minimalism. This was no blood blunder. We comfort only the living. She deftly receives our kind words now. You've probably all been to those funerals. So now I've been reading a lot of poets, but it always helps to have poets that you know and that you can talk to, be advised by. And so this is for one who you might actually recognize if you listen carefully, somebody who might even be in the room, called Poets Meet at the Racetrack. It had been years. I was glad you recognized me, graying and in folds, Funny how the mind consistently conjures. Can you believe there is more to this world if you stay in place? I thought of you when I walked through the gate. Who else do I know who has written artfully of this place? Finally, we exchanged old recognition, connected. Trading seats at the counter, you walked me to the viewing circle, scoffing at my zany intuition. We repeat at leisure our children's tales, retelling misdeeds. Wives by our sides open separate doors with staccato syntax, grimace at our chosen banalities. The bell sounds and we rush to watch the destructive stimulations, wretched today, vividly joyous in sun-drenched memory. Edged at the tape, we wonder how to mix our posed austerity with greed. We walk through program-filled aisles, garbage flipped into the bins of tomorrow. You, the battered chronicler, must stay and watch the sad story of your pony-playing companion, hoping to take home and remember one new detail, one complete vignette. All right. So this is a poem I never really liked, but I really love the title, so I thought I'd give it another chance. It's called My Dogs Vote for President. I think very timely. And the reason I didn't like it was I never really understood the first verse. I mean, I wrote it, but I never understood the first verse. But I read it over a few times today, and what I figured out is the first verse really introduces the second part of the poem and the third part of the poem, which are very different, but come together. So maybe it works if you can follow that. The body too long rested, now tired like a shadow wall image that sparks the adrenaline of thought, the assessing glint of the gray-haired clerk recommending popular paperbacks and smiling at random connections inverted remind me of parallel worlds, a double vision. The first, ideologically bankrupt. The second, where character is collected. Let's try the first. Disdainful of threats imposed by preemptive zealotry, he witnesses empires collapsing in cheers. A born-again patrician, unbound by nationalism and unrestrained doublespeak, he leads those without history into the world of not. A predator in Brooks Brothers' suit courting rich merchants of celebrity, he sings to the imperious arrogance of occupation, excusing atrocity with God's will, never doubting his apocalyptic vision of war, beyond victory or loss, dissimulating a gay condemnation of what he does not know. Our cities lie shamed and polarized, riddled by the travels and speeches of cowards and liars, dictators with invisible arms, without intuitive honor. One page of condemnation will not eliminate the ills of this macabre show. Second part. There is no leash law in the neighborhood dog world of my imagination. Howling through washes, gathering night adventure, snouts in trash cans dodging the walls of chlorinated human pleasure. My mind races through yards bound by the thoroughfares of shocking death. The moon lights our half-seen acre, language shared in barks and whimpers, like boyhood friends, breaking curfew. Poetry rings true our return. Sleeping days and escaping to a burrowed world where covered and protected our senses snuggle and are satisfied by smell. Clove, markings, the bitch's scent, touching without regret, the whole divine. So I do think our dog should be voting for president. I think we'd do better. All right. Well, as you can see, I'm not nearly as uplifting as Jefferson. But you know, when it all comes down to it, it comes down to family and friends. So I'm going to just read 3 poems that are kind of about family in different orders. The first is called Birth Order. I've had 3 children. They all had very different births, as their mother will attest. And out of that, I came up with a theory of all of us. This one's called Birth Order. Each of you the same since birth. The first, early, refusing to share this world, breached, when forced to present, quiet and determined, you did as we pleased. The second, timely, full force shoulders breaking mother from end to bloody end, twisted and threatened, rapidly rushing from the protected quiet to a cold steel operating room. Baby, giving false impressions, fooling those who know better, then falling without effort into nurses' hands, running from parking lot to delivery, so fast the blood came in buckets. Always, the father is pushed away, useless to the bodily business of the world. Yes, you all remain the same. Your birth has shaped you. Quiet and determined, forceful and in the way, quick and easy to make others sacrifice. In my science experiment, I will ask every mother how her child entered this new space. Then I would understand the man as he emerged before himself. Still, I would never ask after my birth, would it be human to possess the fragile knowledge of that sweet fruit? Which is also kind of, will be interesting since I wrote these after I had had 3 children. Now 2 of my children are about to have children. So they can take that poem and see if it means anything. But you know how you have kids and then you got to raise them. So this one is called, because of my wonderful parental skills, Bukowski Misses the Funeral. At sundown, we bury her bird. Escape the cage, fragile flyer, and learn it's a dog-eat-bird world. The ceremony performed rapidly in the Jewish way, words said, warnings for a future service. Brother sends his regrets. He could not stand to bury another bird. Life is tragic. We bury the bird in the hole left from last summer's boredom. Behind the wall, the dog cannot jump to dig up her prey. Finish the work now. You have purpose. The shovel can turn its last, flattening the tomb to earth. Placing the stone, I think of you in Los Angeles, drinking, cursing, whoring. You write of men's dreams, poker, the fights, the racetrack. Not for you, this domestic bliss, gone to the next woman, big-breasted, peroxide, and drunk. It only matters to you that you live your life. Too bad, really, you always miss the child's tears at the funeral. All right, and I think I'm going to just close with this, if it's okay. We could go on and on, but I'll close with this. This is one of my favorites. It's always important that you have somebody who serves as your watchstar in life, and it's even nicer when you think you've done an okay job of describing that person. This one's called Grandma. Watching last possessions leaving through the back door, she smiles at the 50-year static rising from the oriental rug she prized. Investments against a market she could not control nor give her concern. Eyes still bright, gleaming wit and rage at 99. She does not notice the mothball smell preserving the flowered silk purse, the square-heeled shoes, almost fashionable. The rolling metal chair she calls home has replaced the painted English upholstery from which she shared holidays, celebrating the miracle of Oz turning green from the old black and white console. Football championships covered in snow brought by the wonder of electricity and ritual meals served with dull regularity to distant relatives, glowing in the warmth of winter's invited 60 degrees. Struggling to give her life's collections, she uncovers memories of weekends at the drive-in, already a grandmother these 45 years past, concealing the drunk second husband in the garage of her faith. Happiness, experienced long ago, now balances empty on sorrow's edge, exhausting the clarity of age. Watching generations of her men move cherry wood and ivory to a neighborhood forbidden to her youth, she strives to connect this ghost world, hapless and precarious, to the old ballroom of her confusion of a wedding, dresses, boulevards, and sisters devoured by time. Ignoring the silence beyond tomorrow, she grapples with the doctor's cold pronouncement, neither cruel nor suspenseful, unforgiving in her returned state of truth that will withstand the last pain. Her long, elderly face, hair thinning, will not be dazzled by his poor human vision slipped through the depths. She knows she cannot win the eternal bet. Struggling against the decrepitude of the empty room before her reign, left to solitary escapes, her time thoughts verge on the task of living day to day, knowing so long as an acerbic tongue can defend against nature's incursions, she remains in the exile of a life gathered and lost. She has had no more or less than others. She will determine when it is time to go. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wow. Wow. Yes, indeed. First of all, I'd like to thank Creative Tucson, Channel 20, and Brink.com for offering this terrific venue tonight. I'd like to thank our generous, wonderful audience for being here with us tonight as well. And lastly, for reminding all of us how blessed we are to live in Tucson, because it is such a rich, diverse, literate community. I'd like to thank our poets. First, Mr. Jefferson Carter. And Mr. Jonathan Rothschild. So thank you very much for being with us this evening. Have a wonderful summer.